Excellent. Yeah, and we're delighted to have you on the show and to get into this preview series. Let's start, of course, with the hosts, Qatar, defending champions. We talked about it on a recent episode as well, but just to fill us in once again, where are things at? What are expectations like in the country? And just broadly, away from the team and the coaching issues and so on, how ready is the nation itself? Is there a World Cup hangover? Do we expect the crowds to still be good? Obviously, we know the infrastructure and the facilities is there, but what's the mood like in terms of this build up to another major tournament?
Well, obviously, it's not going to be anything like the World Cup. Yeah, nobody's expecting that. And I think the Asian Cup still needs a lot more marketing, to be honest, to reach certain communities in Qatar to expand its scope. I would say it's not even the most popular international tournament for a lot of people. For me, it is okay, but not for a lot of other people, even from my home country, India. In Qatar, we have a lot of Indian expats, but not all of them are up to date with everything that's happening in Asian football, for example. So the fact that India is playing in this tournament will be a big attraction for Indian fans, and you can see that most of, or at least all three of India's games will attract sizable crowds. You could say the same for Qatar's opening game, and maybe Saudi Arabia versus Oman, but not all the other games will have a significant, I would say, presence of fans. So let's wait and see if people here in Qatar are trying to replicate. They want to live the experience of the World Cup once again. If they're looking for that, then this is the perfect opportunity. It might be the last opportunity because I don't think we're going to be hosting a tournament of this size again for quite some time. So let's see in a week's time. I think the opening game will definitely have a big crowd, sold out because of the opening ceremony. And the game against Lebanon for Qatar, which is going to be the first official competitive game for the new coach Tintin Marquez Lopez. Unknown quantity. We could say that this was not the way we wanted Qatar to enter this tournament, but this is where we are at the moment.
Ahmed, you mentioned the crowds and the concerns you have in terms of the promotion of the event. Is there any concerns there in Doha of something of a hangover maybe from the last World Cup? We saw obviously Qatar didn't perform very well on the pitch in any of the three games that they played, and we actually witnessed during those games fans leaving the stadium after it became very apparent that Qatar was not going to perform particularly well. Has that prevailing mood continued within football in Qatar? Has it affected ticket sales for the Qatar national team games? Obviously, the loss of Kiros and all of the sort of the upheaval around that can't have helped either, can it?
I think you've got a point there. The World Cup was not. It did not go the way we wanted it to. Not in terms of the expectations that we had after the long period of preparation before the World Cup. So all the fans who came on, who came to the stadiums, were disappointed. The ones who did not come were even more disappointed, I guess, because they had low expectations, and we went even below those expectations, I would say. So coming into this tournament, I think even with Carlos Queiroz, people were not happy, and with Tintin Marquez Lopez, even then, a lot of people don't know what to expect. And there are complaints about the selections that he has made, especially with names like Asim Madebo missing out. And there's the big exclusion of Abdul Karim Hassan, who has continued to be out of the picture for a long time now after the World Cup, and the problems that he has had with the national team management. So I can say that a significant section of the fan community here, they're not happy with the way Qatari football is progressing with the selection of the national team. But there will still be a sizable crowd of Qataris at the opening match. That is for sure. And it will not just be Qataris themselves, but there are also a lot of people here who did not get the opportunity to watch matches at the World Cup, and this will be one opportunity to do that. at these big venues, at the Lusail Stadium, which nobody expected would be a venue during this Asian Cup. But that was a last minute change, which I think is a welcome change. A lot of people will want to see the stadium where the final of the World Cup took place. So I think the first game for sure will have a big crowd, and then depend on Qatar's performance in that game, and we could see a build up in terms of hype and excitement from then on.
You touched on the squad. Were there any other surprise omissions, surprise inclusions, and just generally, how do you think the squad stacks up compared to, say, some of the other tournament favourites, the likes of Japan, South Korea, and Australia? Is this squad good enough to take Qatar all the way to defending their crown?
Well, I'm not optimistic about defending the title. I don't think this team has that. But I could say that with the quality that we still have, we are capable of at least reaching the quarterfinals and maybe the semifinal. But Japan look really, really strong. Iran and South Korea and all of these teams are I think, at another level compared to, I think, their performances at the last Asian Cup. So Qatar does not have what it takes at the moment to go all the way, especially with the pressure that they are under, with the expectations that were on their shoulders at the World Cup and the performance that they showed. So it was a completely different story when they went into the last Asian Cup in Abu Dhabi, and I'm sure all of you know that there were, I think, low expectations, a much younger squad, and they went in, and with the political climate at that time, they were able to play with a lot of motivation and vigor that we did not expect, to be honest. And that is missing at the moment. I don't know what will be the spark that can push them on in this tournament. So my expectation is that even if they win this group, they will not reach the semi-final. But if they do, I think that will be a big achievement. Yeah.
I've just got a question for you, Ahmed. Talking about the squad, obviously Carlos Queiroz has left. Tintin Marquez has come in. One of the surprise exclusions for me was that of Tamim Mansour. We haven't seen a lot of young Qatari players come through, but he was one player that seemed to be doing well. It scored goals recently under Carlos Queiroz and looked like perhaps it was a player that Qatar, could have a young player coming through. He's been left out of this squad. Is there any reason that you can see why he would be left out of this squad? And were you surprised that he wasn't included as well?
Yeah, I think everyone was surprised when the squad came out and when we didn't see Tamim Mansour on the list. But he's not the only one. Ahmed Rawi, who is his club teammate, and they're of the same age group, he's not on the list either. And both of them were in the squad when Carlos Queiroz was in charge. And Queiroz himself mentioned this fact in his last press conference and seemingly taking credit for bringing them onto the scene. And I think at that point, we all expected that they would feature in the Asian Cup, but that has not happened. They've been named instead in Qatar's squad for the Under 23 Asian Cup preparation. So I don't know if it is a strategy on Qatar's part to keep them away from the spotlight at this moment. And probably the coach does not think that he will need them at the Asian Cup. I don't know for sure. So those two are, I think, surprise exclusions: Ahmed Al Rawi and Tamim Mansour. Tamim Mansour's father, Mansour Muftah, was a legend of Qatari football, and when the first Asian Cup in Qatar took place in 1988, he was one of the stars of the team. So I think Tamim would have loved to do the same for Qatar, but that opportunity is gone now. Another big exclusion, as I mentioned earlier, is Asim Adebo, which beats me, to be honest. I don't know why he is not there in the squad, because he's been performing well lately for Al Duhail, coming back from a series of injuries. So I don't really understand that exclusion. And then I think it's very, very unfortunate that Osama Al Tairi got injured right before the Asian Cup. An exciting player, exciting developing player at Al Rayyan. And he had all the potential, all the tools to go forward and do much, much better in his career. So missing out in this Asian Cup with an ACL injury. I think it's a difficult thing to accept.
All right, guys, and just before we go, Ahmed, just circling back to you. Finally, what are you? And just again, touching on what I touched on at the start of the thing. How big a moment is this for the nation of Qatar? I mean, in terms of football, in terms of footballing politics, because we're already seeing, I think, a bit of a shift kind of away from Qatar towards Saudi Arabia, and maybe that being the dominant power base of not just Asian football, but perhaps even world football beyond that as well. So how important is it that Qatar put on a good face, that the crowds come out? Because not just in Qatar, but in this tournament generally, people from Europe maybe tune in, from the round of 16, the quarters, and they see half-filled stadiums, and we know the kind of commentary that comes around that. How important is it for Qatar, and how do you expect things to go off?
Obviously, if you look at it, it's definitely important for Qatar to build on the World Cup, not the on-pitch performance, but the organization of pitch and the crowds that came to the stadium. So to show a repeat of that, to show that there is a legacy for the World Cup in terms of both increased interest in football and also the use of these stadiums after the World Cup. It's important in that way, but also it's also important for football. It's important for the national team to show that the 2019 Asian Cup triumph was not a flash in the pan. To show that they still have quality in them, that this is a footballing nation, and that the World Cup was a setback, but it's something that they can rise up from. So this is one final opportunity, I would say, for Qatar as a country. It's like the final act, as you said before. In all the interest moves to Saudi Arabia. The spotlight moves on to Saudi Arabia for the next 5, 6, 10 years. Who knows? So we've been enjoying that spotlight for the last decade, and this is the final act. This is the opportunity to show that we still have what it takes, and we can use this as the beginning of a new era, away from the spotlight, and a new era in which we should look to qualify for the World Cup comfortably for the first time, not as hosts, and make that a regular thing. So I think in that way, this Asian Cup is important, and the next under 23 Asian Cup is also very important in that sense.